Today to announce that a federal grand jury in the Southern District of New York indicted 9 Iranians for conspiring to hack into computers and to defraud American and foreign universities, businesses, and government agencies. I want to caution you that an indictment is not a finding of guilt. In the American judicial system, defendants are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in court. This indictment alleges that the defendants worked on behalf of the Iranian government, specifically the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. They hacked the computer systems of approximately 320 universities in 22 countries. 144 of the university victims are American universities. The defendants stole research that cost those universities approximately $3.4 billion to procure and maintain. That stolen information was used by the Revolutionary Guard or sold for profit in Iran. The defendants worked for an organization known as the Mabna Institute, which 2 of the defendants founded for the stated purpose of helping Iranian universities access scientific research. Their work consisted of stealing research through illegal computer intrusions. The indictment charges 9 defendants for committing 7 federal crimes. The charges include computer fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. I want to make 2 additional points before I turn the microphone over to United States Attorney Jeffrey Berman, who will provide more details about the allegations and the defendants. First, every sector of our economy is the target of malicious cyber attacks. Everyone who owns a computer needs to be vigilant to prevent attacks. Academic institutions are prime targets for foreign cyber criminals. Universities can thrive as marketplaces of ideas and engines of research and development only if their work is protected from theft. Now, the events described in this indictment highlight the need for universities and all other organizations to emphasize cybersecurity, increase threat awareness, and harden their computer networks. The second important point is that our work on this case is critically important because it will disrupt the activities of the Mabna Institute and it will deter similar crimes by other perpetrators. This indictment publicly identifies the conspirators, and this type of public identification helps to deter state-sponsored computer intrusions by stripping hackers of their anonymity and by imposing real consequences. Revealing the Mabna Institute's nefarious activities makes it harder for them to do business. Additionally, we're working with foreign law enforcement agencies and providing the private sector with information that will help to neutralize Mabna's hacking infrastructure. By bringing these criminal charges, we reinforce the norm that most of the civilized world accepts. Nation-states should not steal intellectual property for the purpose of giving domestic industries a competitive advantage. As a result of the indictment, these defendants are now fugitives from justice. There are more than 100 countries where they may face arrest and extradition to the United States. And thanks to the Treasury Department, the defendants will find it difficult to engage in business or financial transactions outside of Iran. By making clear that criminal actions have consequences, we deter schemes to victimize the United States and its companies and its citizens, and we help to protect our foreign allies. In summary, the United States is taking several coordinated actions to coincide with unsealing this indictment. We are imposing financial sanctions on the individual defendants and the Mabna Institute. We are releasing information about cyber vulnerabilities, which will help private sector organizations protect themselves. And we are enlisting the assistance of international law enforcement partners. I am grateful to Secretary Stephen Mnuchin for using the Treasury Department's authorities to reinforce the criminal charges. I also want to thank United States Attorney Jeffrey Berman, Assistant Attorney General John Demers, FBI Director Christopher Wray, and the many Department of Justice employees, agents, prosecutors, and support personnel who worked to secure this important indictment. I'd like now to introduce our United States Attorney from Southern New York, Jeff Berman.
Thank you, Rod. Good morning. My name is Jeffrey Berman, and I am the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Today, in one of the largest state-sponsored hacking campaigns ever prosecuted by the Department of Justice, we have unmasked criminals who normally work in total anonymity, hiding behind the ones and zeros of computer code. This massive and brazen cyber assault on the computer systems of 144 U.S. universities, 176 foreign universities in 21 countries, and dozens of government organizations and private companies. This assault was conducted on behalf of the Iranian government's Islamic Revolutionary Guard, or IRGC. As the indictment alleges, the defendants were leaders and operators of the Mabna Institute, an Iranian company that conducted this assault at the behest of the IRGC and then sold the illegal fruits of its hacking. The company was set up in 2013 by two defendants, Gholam Reza Rafat Najad and Ehsan Mohammadi. And while the company's name may sound legitimate, this so-called institute was set up for one reason only: to steal scientific resources from other countries from around the world. The defendants' global campaign operated in three parts: a university campaign, private company hacks, and non-governmental entity hacks. With respect to the university campaign, from 2013 to 2017, the defendants targeted more than 100,000 accounts of university professors around the world, and by tricking professors to click on false links, compromised 8,000 accounts. Once they gained access to these accounts, the defendants stole massive amounts of academic data and intellectual property. The universities combined had to pay $3.4 billion to access this information. The defendants got it for free. They targeted data and research from all fields, including science and technology, engineering, social science, medical, and other professional fields. In total, they stole at least 31.5 terabytes of data. That's over 15 billion pages, and sent that data back to computers they controlled outside of the United States. And to be clear, this is not just raw data. This is the innovations and intellectual property of some of our country's greatest minds. The second part of the campaign targeted at least 36 private sector companies in the United States and at least 11 companies based in foreign countries. The hackers targeted firms and companies across sectors: law firms, technology companies, consulting companies, financial services firms, healthcare companies, biotechnology companies, and others. Once they gained access, the defendants, among other things, stole entire email mailboxes from the victims. They even set up rules in the stolen accounts to secretly forward all new emails to the defendants. The third and very troubling part of the hacking campaign targeted U.S. government and non-governmental organizations. Among their victims, the U.S. Department of Labor, the United Nations, and even the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. That is the agency that regulates the interstate transmission of electricity, natural gas, and oil. That agency has the details of some of this country's most sensitive infrastructure. We believe that all 9 defendants are currently in Iran, and I have a message for them and for others who attempt to harm our country through cyber assaults. We have worked tirelessly to identify you, and you cannot hide behind a keyboard halfway around the world and expect not to be held to account. Together with our law enforcement partners, we will work relentlessly and creatively to apply the legal tools at our disposal to unmask and charge you. We will do all we can to bring you to justice. While these defendants remain at large, they are now fugitives from the American judicial system. These defendants are no longer free to travel outside of Iran without the fear of being arrested and extradited to the United States. They cannot leave Iran to conduct business. The only way they can see the rest of the world is through their computer screen, but now stripped of their greatest asset, anonymity. Do not forget, at the crux of this case is the fact that the government of Iran systematically and methodically hacked into our country's computer networks with the intent to steal as much information as possible. But as clever as these alleged criminals thought they were ultimately detected and identified by the most sophisticated, capable, and advanced law enforcement in the world. In that regard, I want to thank the FBI, represented here by Deputy Director David Bowdick, and our good friend Bill Sweeney, Assistant Director in charge of the New York Field Office of the FBI. Their work in this case has been extraordinary, and we are very lucky to have them as partners. I would also like to thank the prosecutors of my office who investigated and prosecuted this case. I want to thank our Criminal Division Chief, Lisa Zornberg, for her leadership and excellent supervision of this case. I want to thank the co-head of our Complex Frauds and Cybercrime Unit, Timothy Howard, who has great expertise and knowledge in the area of cybercrime and who spearheaded this investigation and prosecution. Mr. Howard was ably assisted by two of our excellent AUSAs, Richard Cooper and Jonathan Cohen. And I would also like to thank Michael Ferrara, who supervised the case as co-head of the Complex Fraud and Cybercrime Unit. It is a privilege and quite humbling to be working alongside such talented and dedicated public servants. I would now like to introduce the next speaker, the Deputy Director, David Bowdick.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, as Mr. Berman mentioned, I am David Bowdick, the Deputy Director. I'm also representing the FBI here as the Assistant Director of the New York Field Office, Bill Sweeney. If I could, I would have all the FBI agents and analysts, certainly from the New York Field Office as well as around the globe, that assisted with this investigation. I would have them here to show them the appreciation for all the work and the tireless man hours that they put into this investigation, nights, weekends, as well as the prosecutors. The FBI, as you know, is charged with defending the United States against a full range of cyber crimes. We face cyber threats from hackers for hire, organized cyber syndicates, and state-sponsored hackers like the individuals who are indicted today. State-sponsored hackers steal our government's secrets, our trade secrets, our technology, and our ideas for military and competitive advantage. The individuals we're indicting today were leaders, contractors, associates, hackers for hire, or affiliates of the Mabna Institute, a private government contractor based in Iran. The Mabna Institute engaged in the hacking at the behest of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Through a more than 4-year campaign, these state-sponsored hackers compromised approximately 144 U.S.-based universities and 176 foreign universities in 21 countries. They targeted more than 100,000 email accounts of professors around the world and ultimately were able to compromise more than 8,000 of those accounts. Scholarly research, innovative private sector ideas, and personal email account information belonging to the targeted victims was accessed and exploited. In the end, the information retrieved from the academic databases alone during the course of this operation cost the affected U.S.-based higher learning institutions, as you've already heard, it cost them approximately $3.4 billion to procure and access. The subscriptions of these databases are funded in part by taxpayer, your dollars, and student tuition. This means people in our country were paying for services when nation-state actors were consuming for free. And just in case you're wondering, they're not admiring our work. They're stealing it, and they're taking credit for it, and they're selling it to others. They also targeted and compromised email accounts for roughly 36 U.S.-based private companies and 11 private companies overseas, using a massive password spray attack and a low and slow style of brute force attack that flies under the radar of many security protocols used by companies. And they targeted and compromised email accounts for various government and non-governmental organizations, including the Department of Labor, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the states of Hawaii and Indiana, and even the United Nations. When we learned of these attacks, we notified the victims so they could take actions to minimize the impact. We took action to find and stop these hackers. Now, some may ask, why would you pursue people you were never get your hands on? True, apprehending these individuals presents a challenge. This has been discussed previously, but it is not impossible. We've done it before. We'll do it again. People travel, they take vacations, they make plans with their families, and having your name, face, and description on a wanted poster makes moving freely much more difficult. And where we cannot apprehend these individuals easily and quickly, we will resort to different methods, such as naming and shaming, sanctions, and a lot of publicity. And we'll keep at it because the FBI and our partners at the Department of Justice have a very long memory, and the long arm of the law reaches worldwide. We couldn't have gotten this far without the courage and cooperation of our victims. We understand that companies and institutions may be reluctant to report breaches that many believe notifying authorities will hurt their competitive advantage or damage their reputation. We do not want companies or universities or individuals to be victimized a second time by an investigation. We will minimize the disruption to their daily routine, and we will safeguard their privacy. When necessary, we will seek protective orders to preserve trade secrets and business confidentiality. But maintaining a code of silence will not serve anyone in this country in the long run. We want to thank our partners in the United Kingdom's National Crime Agency and the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control. We'll continue to work together and to use every tool at our disposal to fight cyber espionage, to protect our innovation, our ideas, and our information. And we all need to do our part to make sure that our systems are as strong and secure and protected as possible. We cannot stress enough to the American public, to our business owners, to our academic institution across the board, the importance of good cyber hygiene and the use of strong passwords as well as multi-factor authentication. We have to do whatever we can together to lay hands on these people, to deter others from joining the fray, and to keep our people and our networks safe. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sigal Mandelker, and I'm the Undersecretary of Treasury for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. Today, along with the Department of Justice's indictment, the U.S. Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control is designating 1 Iranian entity and 10 Iranian individuals under Executive Order 13694 for significant malicious cyber-enabled activities. Specifically, today, we are sanctioning the Mabna Institute. As you have heard, it's an Iran-based company that contracted with Iranian governmental and private entities to conduct hacking activities on their behalf. The Mabna Institute conducted massive, coordinated cyber intrusions into the computer systems of over 300 universities worldwide, including 144 institutions right here in the United States. This was done at the behest of the Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, which outsourced the theft of intellectual property, research, and data to the Mabna Institute and their hackers for hire. The IRGC plays a central role in Iran's malign activities across the world, including fomenting terrorism. In October of last year, we sanctioned the IRGC under our terrorism authorities for providing material support for the IRGC's Quds Force, the key Iranian entity enabling Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's relentless campaign of brutal violence against his own people, as well as the lethal activities of Hezbollah, Hamas, and other terrorist groups. The IRGC has been designated 4 times over here in the United States, and they've also been designated in the European Union and by the UN. The Mabna Institute's deceptive scheme allowed the IRGC to infiltrate and obtain valuable information from universities in the United States and 21 other countries, including the United Kingdom, Germany, Canada, Australia, Israel, Japan, South Korea, China, and other countries. OFAC is also designating 9 individuals who were leaders, contractors, associates, hackers for hire, and other affiliates of the Mabna Institute. In addition to the actions we are taking against Mabna, OFAC also is designating Iranian national Behzad Mesri, who compromised multiple user accounts belonging to a U.S. media and entertainment company and then engaged in an attempt to extort the victim company for $6 million. As a result of today's action, all property and interests in property of the designated persons subject to U.S. jurisdiction are blocked, and U.S. persons are generally prohibited from engaging in transactions with them. Persons that knowingly conduct significant transactions with these designated persons are also subject to our secondary sanctions. The cyber breaches that we are taking action against today are just the latest extraordinary example of the Iranian regime's willingness to use cyber-enabled and other illicit means to enrich itself and attack companies and countries across the globe. This kind of activity and the number of countries and entities that were victimized should send a message around the world about Iran's continued deceptive practices. Yet it should come as no surprise. The Iranian regime continually attempts to flout our laws and those of our allies and partners. For example, just a few months ago, we took concerted action against an IRGC Quds Force counterfeit scheme that aimed to corrupt the international financial system, including by circumventing European export controls. Likewise, the IRGC, which again outsourced these hacks, continues to have an extensive presence in Iran's economy and benefits from Iran's near total lack of transparency in its financial sector. As the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF, highlighted just last month, there continues to be massive deficiencies in Iran's anti-money laundering, countering the financing of terrorism regime. For over a decade, Iran has failed to fulfill its international AML-CFT obligations at the FATF. As part of this administration's Iran strategy, we are committed to using our authorities to combat the regime's deception and its efforts to corrupt the international financial system. Under this administration, OFAC has issued 11 tranches of sanctions, designating 108 targets in the Middle East, Asia, and Europe in connection with the IRGC, Iran's support for terrorism, its ballistic missile programs, its human rights abuses, its censorship, its transnational criminal activity, and its cyber attacks. We will continue to hold the IRGC and Iranian cyber actors accountable for their malign activity, including these ongoing, costly, and malicious cyber attacks. I want to thank the Justice Department and the FBI for their close coordination and their terrific work on this action. And I want to thank the tremendous career officials at OFAC who worked tirelessly with us on this on this coordinated action.
Mr. Berman or Mr. Rosenstein, can you tell us this? You say this has been going on for 4 or 5 years. How did you get onto it?
It was really the hard work, excellent work of the FBI, and that's how it started, and we pursued it from there.
Mr. Bowditch, maybe you can tell us a little more about what alerted you to this.
Sir, I'm going to actually have to defer to our assistant director in charge to answer that one.
People who know me from New York know I won't answer on the techniques or the tactics. The team that worked is very effective. There's a lot of victims that come forward. Different techniques take place, but I don't want to get into the specifics of how we did it.
Generally, without going into specifics, and I understand that, was it the victims that alerted you to this? They came to you and said, help us find this?
I would have to get back to you on that, on specific victims.
I think the answer is a combination of both. That in some cases, victims came forward, and we encourage, as Deputy Director Bowditch said, we encourage victims to come forward and report to the FBI. You can report any violation to the nearest FBI field office. We encourage victims to come forward because we can help. We can help resolve current attack, and we can help prevent future attacks. And that's why we rely upon victim cooperation. But in many cases, we actually notified the victims because the FBI has superb cyber experts. And for understandable reasons, we don't talk about exactly who they are and what they do, but we have tremendous capability within the FBI to detect cyber intrusions and to combat them. And so there are many cases in which the FBI actually develops this evidence and then presents it to the victims so that they can take appropriate remedial action. Any other questions?
Are there sort of specific palpable examples of where the fruits of the theft manifested themselves in some way, where you saw design plans that were stolen and then something was constructed based out of that, or research that was republished under somebody else's name?
So we're not going to talk about anything beyond what's in the public indictment. If we get to the sentencing stage, with regard to any defendant, we would have specific evidence concerning the loss and the significance of the losses. The victims obviously are free to make their own independent decisions about whether to come forward, either for regulatory or other reasons, and to take appropriate actions to protect their customers. But we're not going to be talking about any details beyond what's in the indictment.
Can you explain a little bit more about the linkage to the IRGC? You said there are contracts. It seems almost hard to believe that somebody would write a contract to have someone else hack something for them. Are you saying those what the contracts say, please steal this information from various U.S. universities?
What's alleged in the indictment is that the Mabin Institute was working essentially as a contractor for the Iranian government. We don't have any details in the indictment, so I'm not going to be able to give you any details about what evidence we have to prove that. But the allegation in the indictment is that the evidence will demonstrate that the Mabin Institute was working on behalf of the IRGC and that the IRGC benefited from the information that was stolen through the cyber hacking. Yes, ma'am.
Sure. As we stand here right now, the city of Atlanta is the victim of a ransomware attack, and there are some concerns that the federal government is not doing enough to sort of prevent and deter these kinds of attacks. I know you have a task force, and I know the FBI, the DOJ, they say these name and shame kind of cases deter, but I haven't seen in this administration or the previous one where this kind of stuff has deterred the Russians, the Chinese, or the Iranians. So can you say specifically what is the federal government doing to sort of deter these kinds of attacks and to protect American businesses and infrastructure?
You packed a lot into the question. This administration is in its second year, and we are doing quite a lot. And I'm not going to speak to what has or hasn't been done historically. You don't see the attacks that have been deterred. You only see the ones that haven't been deterred. And I can tell you that what we're doing through our task force and through the work of our partner agencies is that we are working together to pursue every lead. And we're encouraging private sector victims to come forward and give us this information. We're going to keep returning indictments when we can. Of course, some of the indictments are unsealed, and we make a decision based upon the facts and circumstances whether to unseal an indictment, as we're doing today. We have other cases that are not public, but in which we're working actively and pursuing charges. So we're going to continue to pursue this strategy. We're going to continue to pursue this whole of government approach, which you see here by virtue of Treasury's involvement, and I think that it will have an impact. We know it's going to have an impact. Law enforcement's about specific and general deterrence, and we're going to have a specific deterrent impact on the people who are blocked as a result of this case, and we're going to have a general deterrent impact because we are spreading the word that anybody who attacks America is going to face an appropriate response, coordinated response by the United States government. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Is it true that you never told the Attorney General that he was under investigation for perjury?
Happy Friday, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Fox News Now, part of Fox10Phoenix.com. We are gearing up for Extra, which starts in about 30 minutes. So we're going to take a look at the big board here. If anything breaks, we'll be sure to cut in for you and let you know exactly what's going on. But will he or won't he? Will President Trump sign the $1.3 trillion budget deal that was passed by the House and Senate late last night? I guess we'll find out. Again, happy Friday, everybody. All right, everybody, some breaking news here while we continue to watch the big board. President Donald Trump just tweeting that the news conference at the White House is going to be concerning the omnibus spending bill. That's at 1 o'clock Eastern. We're going to have that here live on News Now. We'll see if it starts right at the beginning of the show. Normally, Ron Hoon is with me at the beginning of the show, so we may need to cut things short if the White House briefing starts as scheduled. You're watching News Now, a part of Fox10Phoenix.com. All right, everybody, I'm going to take you from the big board to the White House briefing picture that we have up now. Going to start the show as usual with Ron Hoon, and then if this briefing starts on time, we'll cut there immediately. You're watching News Now, part of Fox10Phoenix.com. Looks like we've lost that picture for now, everybody, but they told me it will return. It will return, I'm being told. Thanks, everybody, for your patience. I am being told that the White House briefing picture will return here any moment. I don't want to miss it, so I'm going to leave this up. Good morning, everyone. Again, we are just moments away from starting Fox 10 Extra. If you're here in the Phoenix area and you have a television set, it's cable channel 945 for the old school rabbit ears or digital antennas. All eyes on the White House this morning and waiting to see if the president himself will make an appearance at this press briefing. You're watching News Now, part of Fox10Phoenix.com. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to News Now, this Friday edition, and it's March 23rd, 2018. All eyes are on the White House and the stock market. They're expected to start their press briefing any moment now, and we're being told the president himself will make an appearance to talk about the $1.3 trillion budget bill. I'm currently joined by Ron Hoon. Ron, what do you think about all this?
I think, first of all, it is potentially a news reporter's dream come true, because Sarah Sanders is doing, a lot in a lot of regards. She is doing the best she can with the president, who has been known occasionally to change his mind about things. And so sometimes the answers aren't full-on answers; they're almost closer to non-answers. But when you have a president who apparently is very worked up about the fact that what was such a key part of this whole spending bill, he wanted $25 billion to build the border wall, and he got, well, about 1/20th of that, about 1.5 billion, and then he tweets that he is considering a veto we're in standby mode waiting to see exactly what happens. Number one, we believe it will be the president himself who comes to the podium.
So these are his tweets this morning, Ron. This is what got everybody kind of shooken up, for lack of better words, about exactly what's going to happen here. And he tweeted this morning, I am considering a veto of the omnibus spending bill based on the fact that the 800,000 plus DACA recipients have been totally abandoned by the Democrats, not even mentioned in the bill, and the border wall, which is desperately needed for our national defense. It is not fully funded. And then tweeting shortly after,
all right, news conference, White House concerning the omnibus spending bill, 1 p.m. So, high drama right now.
Yep.
What will the president announce? Will he announce it? It seems, considering he has a fighter's reputation, it seems unusual that he would tweet that he was seriously considering it and then immediately come out and announce that he's not going to do it. But we've also seen in instances where basically he does kind of enjoy the whole process of building the anticipation of the and the announcement is expected to come at any moment right now.
yes. So Congress working late into the night to pass this, right?
1.3 trillion, as we told you about yesterday, 1,300 billion. I had done the math on it the amount of spending on an every hour basis is really pretty mind-boggling. So the thing is, it basically gets 6 months worth of funding taken care of until we get to the next budget showdown. At least it won't be every month, but the next big one will be coming up toward October. However, it's the things that are in it beyond the spending that are creating the big headlines.
We'll continue to keep a very close eye on that, and when and if it starts, we're still missing the podium shot again. We don't have it back, but we'll bring it to you right immediately live so we don't miss a thing. But let's move on to some of the other day's top stories. Some sad news from the Maryland high school shooting.
Yeah, the mother of the 16-year-old girl who the gunman, the killer, we shall see, the gunman, walked into that high school at the beginning of the week in Maryland and took aim at her. Apparently he's 17, she was just 16 years old, and apparently he shot her in the head. The school resource officer did respond literally within a matter of seconds, which is a big boost, I believe, to the whole concept of school resource officers being on campus in every high school. You just don't know how far this particular kid wanted to take it. We also don't know exactly where. He's 17 years old. We don't know where he got his gun, the ammo, etc. That part of the story is still to be learned. But sadly, the mother came out overnight and said, our daughter has shown no signs of recovery. She is brain dead. We are going to disconnect her from life support. So we expect actually at any time now we could get the word that she is the latest fatality to come out of the problem that we're having of school shootings in our country.
All right, just learning right now, Ron, that a White House official is saying that the president is going to sign the $1.3 trillion spending bill hours after tweeting that he was considering a veto. So again, we do not have a picture of that, but we'll continue to monitor it. Meanwhile, this morning in Dallas, ahead of the March for Our Lives, some students there protesting, saying enough is enough, and whether you call it gun reform, gun safety, gun control, it's all pretty much one thing.
They're all pretty highly charged phrases, that's for sure. And so at the Yvonne A. Ewell Townview Center, basically what you're seeing today, this is kind of interesting because tomorrow's the day that there will be marches across the country. That's part of what's so fascinating about this. They believe that this will be one of the largest crowds to descend on Washington, D.C. in a long, long time. But at the same time, there are obviously millions of students who feel as though they live under the threat of a possible school shooting, who want to see more action being taken, who don't have the wherewithal to get on a bus and travel all the way across the country to Washington, D.C., I think especially in the western half of the United States. So we will see marches and protests here in the Southwest and in every other part of the country. And this morning we actually saw an early one there in Dallas.
Yes, this is the Townview Magnet Center in Dallas. Students there holding up signs, and we'll wait to see the fallout. Meanwhile, this morning, former Arizona Congresswoman Gabby Giffords attended a gun safety event. She did not make remarks, but her husband, Mark Kelly, did. So that's a brief minute long that we're going to play for you here really quickly.
Well, so Gabby and I got involved in this after the shooting at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012. So since I think it's been about 5 years, it's a little bit of 2 steps forward, step and a half back sometimes. What Gabby and I are really excited about, we're going to have a lot of people here, and they want their voices heard. They're going to be here tomorrow to march, and it's a great group of students. But what's really exciting, they're not going to be students for very long. They're going to be voters. Here in November, a lot of these young people are going to be voting. And that is what is going to really make a difference. I mean, this election in November could turn out to be a referendum on what Congress collectively has not done on this issue for so many years. And when that happens, we're going to see some real change. So everything you mentioned out here, we can get those bills passed. We can get new laws to keep communities safer from gun violence, as long as these people agree that it's up to them to vote. And I think they're going to do that.
All right, Ron. So here's a live look now. It looks like they've actually changed locations. Doesn't look like an actual White House press briefing like we normally see.
Okay, so that was the feed, and we actually wondered for a minute. Hold on. We saw the camera all set up and ready to go in the White House press room. Therefore, that would be highly unusual. But there's really nothing that's all that predictable so far about the way the president likes to run the show. He could very well have done that, but right now it looks like he's going to step into I'm trying to remember if this is the Roosevelt room or exactly which part of the White House, but this is the scene of a more traditional signing ceremony. And just before we went to that comment regarding the March for Our Lives, we had seen the update from the Associated Press saying that the president will sign the spending bill. Almost immediately after that, we see this picture pop up. And, we're not reading body language here. We're reading what is the camera trying to tell us before the president speaks. And generally, when it happens in this room, it means that there is going to be a signing that is going to be taking place.
And Ron, I'm hearing this omnibus budget bill is 2,200 pages long.
It is sort of ridiculous. You know what? There are just a handful of people. See, testing, 1, 2, 3. There are a handful of people who sat in a room who hammered out what was going to be in this 2,000-page document. And there's a lot of frustration, even amongst those that were intimately involved in the negotiation of the details, saying this system has got to change. You're asking people to vote on something that they have no idea what's in there. Even a senator as prominent as Bob Corker, who has not been a very big fan of President Trump, last night said it was like a plea, and he's on his way out the door.
Right.
And it was like a plea. He said, all I'm saying is, if we can't get stuff done by midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, it should be okay for us to come back in the morning, and not be all bleary-eyed after an 18-hour day to take the steps necessary to go ahead and vote for it. So everybody's frustrated, I think, about the process. And there is a lot of pushback from some key people in the Senate saying it's just no way to do business. However, there are plenty of things in that bill that are going to generate a lot of headlines in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, so we are waiting any moment here. Looks like photographers are all testing the microphone, making sure that they're going to get this thing in full. And so we'll bring it to you. We'll have it here in full as well. So what we're going to do, so we don't miss a thing, let's take a quick break. Ron, thanks for being with us.
You bet.
All right.
Standing
Happy Friday.
by.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to News Now. We are taking a live look at the podium where President Donald Trump is expected to be any moment. We are anticipating that he is going to sign the $1.3 trillion budget that at least gets us through a few more months. Not a permanent fix, not a long-term solution, but let's listen in on the anticipation that continues to build here.
Of how it's always been done on Capitol Hill. So he's stepping in here and saying he's considering vetoing what just got passed, and the House and the Senate stayed up, until the wee hours to try to get this done so that the government would not shut down. And he's willing to take all of that on politically, to look at it square and say, yeah, we have some things that are not in here and we need to talk about this. But on the flip side is Defense Secretary Mattis saying this may be one of the best deals that we're going to get in a decade for things like pay raises for our military. So there are some things in it that the president might be grappling with.
I think that's right. And I think that's one of the reasons why, and a lot of my friends who are still in the White House have been saying, is that the president all week has not been a fan of this bill. He likes various parts of it, but not the complete package. And I think it does provide the opening. Just the threat that the president issued this morning, and if he does go ahead and sign it here in a few minutes, I think it puts him in a very powerful position to be able to call on Congress to quickly act, do a DACA deal, get the border funding, provide the money for more border agents and immigration reform that he's been talking about for months.
So interesting.
If he vetoes it, but if he vetoes it, then obviously you're going to have a government shutdown. Yeah. And now the negotiations change in that respect. So I think just being able to get Congress to sit down and focus is the president using leverage that he is a master at doing.
Mark Lauder, I want to remind everybody as they join us now via Fox broadcast stations and also Fox News Channel viewers who are seeing it in social media, get to your TV, the president's about to speak. To the left of your screen is a lectern that they have set up in the diplomatic room. We thought this was going to happen in the White House press briefing room because there was a White House press briefing that was scheduled for 1 p.m. Eastern. Then the president sent out a tweet just a short time ago during the noon Eastern hour saying that there would be a news conference, and we learned that he would be the point person on that back and forth with the correspondents who've gathered in the room now, the diplomatic room, at the White House concerning the omnibus spending bill. That keeps the government funded and opened beyond midnight tonight. The president says that would be at 1 p.m. Eastern. We've scooted a little past that, but we are watching. It took a minute for those journalists to move from the White House press briefing room. They got a call, you got to get to the other room. So they are gathered there. And we understand that this will be a conversation, a Q&A, a press availability with the President of the United States on the taxpayer money, $1.3 trillion, and why he would consider vetoing that bill, and what are the things ahead of him in terms of getting Democrats and Republicans to work together, deal with DACA, deal with the national defense and the border wall and the border system, those issues. He wants those things on the table. Remember, Democrats said they wanted DACA recipients on the table too. Why isn't that the case? So we're watching for the president to tell us what he will do. And I want to bring Mark Lauder back into the picture now if he's still with us. Mark, if you're there, because you were at the White House just yesterday, and you can tell us the tone and tenor of this president on the very issues.
Now, I didn't speak with the president yesterday, but I did obviously spend time with some of the senior staff and with the vice president. And the focus is always the same. It's what are we doing to advance the president's agenda? The president made a commitment to build a wall. He has been very clear on his expectations for that. He has talked about wanting to deal with dreamers as well. And so there is a deal to be made if Democrats will come to work for it. So all of these larger pictures, all of these larger issues, we will deal with them. The president will make the decision he's going to make here in just a few moments. But I can tell you yesterday and really almost in all of my communications with my former colleagues, they are always focused on the president wanting to deliver his promises. And this is a promise he made to the American people.
Let's talk about the congressional side of this. Because you've got members who have gone for Representative Slaughter's funeral. They got on military planes. They are out of the picture at this point, so you'd have to call them back to keep the government from shutting down if they were in any hopes of putting together some sort of spending gap bill. because if the president vetoes this, it goes into government shutdown. You've got those members, but I'm wondering, you're forecasting, as the Associated Press is also, that he will likely sign this bill, but he'll sign it with a lot of comment and a lot of questions, and that'll put what? Pressure on Congress, correct?
Yes. And we don't know, and hopefully I'm sure the president, when he announces the decision that he's going to make, whether he signs it or vetoes it, will give more information to the American people. But I'm not aware, and I don't know if, did he speak to the speaker this morning? Did he speak to the leader or the minority party leaders and extract any kind of a commitment from them to be able to bring back these issues when they come back in 2 weeks? Those are the kinds of things that I don't personally know. It wouldn't be surprising if he did do those things, and hopefully he'll provide that information to us when he comes to the podium here in a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the questions that after he makes whatever signing or doesn't sign, whatever statement he's going to make, those correspondents in the room are John Roberts, chief White House correspondent among them now at the diplomatic room inside the White House, will likely ask this president. Mark, before I let you slide out of the picture, and we're all going to watch this together now, waiting for the president to step up and tell us exactly what he's decided on this big spending bill, whether he will veto or not. You know, we have been talking about this issue now of DACA and the Dreamers for months. We knew that there was a deadline, and now we've slid past that in early March, that would give them more comfort, if you will, for lack of a better term, in knowing what their immigrant status was going to be. It seems like this president is willing to take that issue on even more than Democrats.
Absolutely, and right now, to your earlier point, Harris, when the courts got involved and basically put a hold on this process, they removed the deadline. And as you said, when Congress doesn't face a deadline, they're not as likely to act. So right now, we are in that zone where there's really nothing going to happen because of the courts. But this is a president who doesn't want to wait. He is a leader who wants things done yesterday. He gave Congress 6 months to get this worked out. We've still not been able to do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is what he views as the opportunity to finally push this across the line, get it done for the Dreamers, get it done for border security, to stop the drugs, the gang members coming into our neighborhoods, and to provide a sense of calm and peace to those people who are here, the DACA recipients, who have been working hard, living the American dream, staying out of trouble, and who do, in the president's view, deserve the right to be able to continue to contribute to our society.
Is some 600,000 to 800,000 of them, but also the president offering 1.8 million. The certainty of some sort of cover, and that would include family members, more nuclear family members around the kitchen table that we always talk about with those Dreamers. Mark Lauder, thank you for your experience and perspective on this. I'm going to bring in now Congressman Chris Stewart, Republican from Utah, and also just to let you know that we have a wider audience today, Congressman, here on Outnumbered Overtime as we await the president. Our Fox broadcast stations are with us as well. You voted against this huge omnibus spending bill because it is so large.
Well, there's a number of reasons. One of them is the debt that we have to certainly encounter and deal with at some point. But part of it is what the president has expressed concerns about. I mean, why in the world are we going to push DACA down the road, and not finally deal with it? I mean, I've been talking with media a number of times saying it appears to me the Democrats would much rather have the politics and have the argument than actually solve it. And who in the world would object to securing our borders, securing our southern borders? And it appears, I don't know what the president's going to do, and none of us want a shutdown, but it appears that he's willing to push back on us. And frankly, Congress should be responsive to that. We can do better than this, Harris.
So as we look ahead, I mean, we don't know exactly what the president will do. We just talked with Mark Lauder. He was at the White House just yesterday evening, met with the vice president and other senior staff at the White House, and said that the tone and tenor was that the president was really insisting on knowing all the answers about this, all the options about this, and that today we learned that he would consider a veto. How surprised are you that we are in this position? And what kinds of conversations are conservatives like yourself, those more conservative fiscally members of the House and Senate, saying to this president?
Yeah, you know, I'm not terribly surprised, but I wish we would have had this conversation with the president a week ago. Because once again, I think if he had said, I will veto this spending bill, if it does not include these things, it would have given us the energy and the momentum to perhaps include them previous to voting on the bill. And once again, I don't think anyone wants a shutdown, and I think the last people who want to shut down are the Democrats, especially over this issue. Are they not going to support DACA? Are they going to, again, another second Schumer shutdown? It's the last thing in the world they want. But we need, unfortunately, Congress is just a body that you need a pressure point too often to get it to work. And maybe this pressure point will be provided by this president. Look, if we shut the government down for the weekend, I would be happy with that if at the end of the day we get, well, yeah, for a few days, if at the end of that we could have border security and we could fix this DACA problem. It's not the end of the world to shut the government down for a few hours, but these are issues that are going to stay with us for a long, long time. And I just feel it's better if we could get it off the table and deal with it.
Yeah, and I want to talk to that optic of kicking the can down the road too. It's like the back of a VW just married. I mean, we see these issues like.
All right, everybody, Pilar Arias still here with you. We have less than 2 minutes until the president is expected to come out, but we'll continue to listen in here.
Please know that 2.4 to 3% pay hike that troops will get, that kind of language, that kind of money spent on those resources, those human resources, is better than what we've seen in a decade. So please know that puts this in jeopardy. By the way, Congressman, just in our talk, we're learning that we're inside now of a 2-minute warning of the president stepping up, the president of the United States stepping up. Will he sign the omnibus spending bill? I want to get some quick thoughts from you before he makes it into the room.
Well, it's hard for me to project because, once again, this is a bit of a surprise for all of us. I think that the issues he's highlighting are worth highlighting. If he ends up signing it, I'm glad that he did this anyway, just to emphasize to the American people that he is trying to fix these things, and Congress has not been willing or able to do that up to this point, and we should.
You know, there has been criticism of this president recently of the chaotic nature and the job hires that he's moving around the table. He's replacing a Secretary of State. He's replacing his national security advisor. He's making a lot of changes. He forecast this a couple of weeks ago saying, I want to get the cabinet that I want, I'm quoting him, and other things that I want. This fits in that category of going after the swamp, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Thank you very much, everybody. We have a lot of good news to report. Some tremendous trade deals are being made with various countries. We're negotiating very long, very hard, but very quickly. And the deal with South Korea is, according to Secretary Ross and Bob Lighthizer, is very close to being finished. And we're going to have a wonderful deal with a wonderful ally. We're getting very close to it. It was a deal that was causing a lot of problems for our country in terms of employment and in terms of lots of other things. I might ask Secretary Ross to just say a few words about that, and then we're going to get on to this ridiculous situation that took place over the last week. So, Secretary Ross.
Thank you, Mr. President. We believe we are relatively close to a pretty comprehensive resolution with the South Korean government. It will encompass, if it goes through, both the 232s and broader trade issues. And we hope by sometime next week to be able to have a real announcement.
Thank you very much, Wilbur. I appreciate it. The last time we negotiated something like this, and as you know, it's always been a problem for our country, they get together and they create a series of documents that nobody's been able to read because it was just done. Now, you tell me who can read that quickly. It takes a long time to read it. For the last 8 years, deep defense cuts have undermined our national security. And they just, if you look at what's taken out, they've hollowed our readiness as a military unit and put America at really grave risk. My highest duty is to keep America safe. Nothing more important the omnibus bill reverses this dangerous defense. As crazy as it's been, as difficult as it's been, as much opposition to the military as we've had from the Democrats, and it has been tremendous. I try to explain to them, you know, the military is for Republicans and Democrats and everybody else. It's for everybody. But we have tremendous opposition to creating really what will be by far the strongest military that we've ever had. We've had that from the Democrats. So if we take something for the military, they want something for, in many cases, things that are really a wasted sum of money. And it's not right, and it's very bad for our country. We're looking to do funding for our final fight in certain areas. As you know, we've gotten just about 100% of our land back from ISIS. We have troop increases necessary to accomplish what we have to do, and we have, very importantly, a pay increase for our troops. And this will be actually the largest pay increase for our incredible people in over a decade. It increases total defense spending by more than $60 billion from last year and funds the addition of critically needed ships, planes, helicopters, tanks, and submarines. We have submarines being built, the likes of which there's nothing anywhere in the world like the submarines we build. Our military equipment is the best equipment in the world. And one of the things you saw 2 days ago with Saudi Arabia and with other countries. Saudi Arabia, as an example, is buying hundreds of billions of dollars worth of our equipment. And we're getting very fast approvals on that. Therefore, as a matter of national security, I've signed this omnibus budget bill. There are a lot of things that I'm unhappy about in this bill. There are a lot of things that we shouldn't have had in this bill, but we were, in a sense, forced. If we want to build our military, we were forced to have. There are some things that we should have in the bill. But I say to Congress, I will never sign another bill like this again. I'm not going to do it again. Nobody read it. It's only hours old. Some people don't even know what it is. $1.3 trillion. It's the second largest ever. President Obama signed one that was actually larger, which I'm sure he wasn't too happy with either. But in this case, it became so big because we need to take care of our military. And because the Democrats, who don't believe in that, added things that they wanted in order to get their votes. We have to get rid of the filibuster rule. We have to get rid of the filibuster rule and go to 51 votes in the Senate if we're going to have really sustained, continued success. DACA recipients have been treated extremely badly by the Democrats. We wanted to include DACA. We wanted to have them in this bill. 800,000 people. And actually, it could even be more. And we wanted to include DACA in this bill. The Democrats would not do it. They would not do it. To prevent the omnibus situation from ever happening again, I'm calling on Congress to give me a line item veto for all government spending bills, and the Senate must end. They must end the filibuster rule and get down to work. We have to get a lot of great legislation approved, and without the filibuster rule, it'll happen just like magic. I want to address the situation on border security, which I call national defense. I call it stopping drugs from pouring across our border. And I call it illegal immigration. It's all of those things. But national defense is a very important two words, because by having a strong border system, including a wall, we are in a position militarily that is very advantageous. And before I get off of that subject, I'd like to ask Secretary Mattis to talk about what we've accomplished in terms of the military, because there has never been anything like we've been able to do. Our military is very depleted, but it's rapidly getting better. And in a short period of time, it will be stronger than it has ever been. So I'd like to ask Secretary Mattis to say a few words, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, in 1790, in George Washington's first annual address to Congress, he stated, "To be prepared for war is one of the most effective means of preserving the peace." As the President noted, today we receive the largest military budget in history, reversing many years of decline and unpredictable funding. And together, we are going to make our military stronger than ever. We in the military are humbled and grateful to the American people for their sacrifices on behalf of this funding. Now it's our responsibility in the military to spend every dollar wisely in order to keep the trust and the confidence of the American people and the Congress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, General. The border we've worked very hard on. We have a lot of, really by any standard a lot, but not by this standard, but we're going to make it go a long way. We have a lot of money coming to the border, and it will be coming over a period of time. We funded the initial down payment of $1.6 billion. We're going to be starting work literally on Monday on not only some new wall, not enough, but we're working on that very quickly, but also fixing existing walls and existing acceptable fences. There are some areas that you have to see through. You have to be able to see through the other side in order to see what's coming. And in many cases, it's not a pretty picture when you look, but you have to be able to see it. So we have $1.6 billion for the wall. That'll start immediately. This is a short-term funding, but it's immediate. Starts immediately, and I'd like to ask Secretary Nielsen to say a few words about what we've done in terms of Homeland Security and what the bill does for Homeland Security. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We at the Department of Homeland Security work very closely with the Department of Defense, and we support this omnibus in the defense of our country. As the President has stated, under his leadership, he has delivered for the American people. This is a down payment on a border wall system. This is a 10% increase for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This will help us improve our aviation security with some badly needed upgrades, and we look forward to working with Congress on additional needs that we have. I will say, however, that it's unfortunate that Congress chose not to listen to the men and women of DHS and those on the front lines. They told us how to build the wall, where to build the wall, and we will continue to work with them to make sure that the wall is where we need it, how we need it, as the President described, and to make sure that it serves the American people and serves the security of this nation. We also will continue to work with Congress to close the dangerous loopholes that the President has mentioned many times, and to continue to increase our overall security. And finally, we thank those in Congress who support the Department of Homeland Security. I will continue to make myself available to them. I look forward to working with them, but we must fund the department and give it the tools and resources it needs to execute the mission the American people have asked us to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary. So we have many elements in the bill that we wanted. Just to look at a few of them, we're providing $654.6 billion in total discretionary funding for defense. It's a record, all records for defense. There will be nobody that says that our military is going to be depleted like they've been saying over the last long period of time, frankly, beyond President Obama. That won't be happening. We're spending a lot of money on nuclear, our nuclear systems, to upgrade, and in some cases brand new, whether it's submarines, nuclear submarines, and others. So we'll have by far the most powerful nuclear force on Earth, and it'll be absolutely in perfect shape and condition, and hopefully, praise be to God, we don't ever have to use it. But there will be nobody that's even close. This will give a substantial increase to people even outside of the military, but military-related. Some of the many things that we're buying in the military, we have $23.8 billion to procure 34 Navy ships. Our Navy is at about the lowest point in terms of ships that it's been in over 100 years. And we're adding a significant number of extremely advanced vessels. $10.2 billion for 90 F-35 aircraft. That's the most sophisticated aircraft in the world, jet fighters. Total stealth. They're hard to find, they're hard to see, therefore they're hard to beat. It's very tough to beat a plane when you can't see it. It's the most advanced in the world. $10.2 billion for 90 F-35. We have $2.9 billion for 15 KC-46 tanker aircraft. The tanker aircraft is very important based on everything. It allows our planes to travel anywhere in the world without landing. $1.8 billion for 24 FA-18EF Super Hornet aircraft fighter jets. $1.7 billion for 10 PA, the Poseidons. Incredible stuff. $1.1 billion for 56 UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters, most advanced helicopter in the world by far. Fighting machine. $1.1 billion for the upgrade of 85 Abrams tanks. $705 million for the cooperative programs that we're working with Israel and others on various missile defense systems. We're spending a lot of money on missile defense. We have a lot of offense that's been recently installed. We're spending tremendous money on missile defense. You understand what that means? Everybody does. With what we have out there, missile defense is very, very important. We are funding our Border Patrol agents and our ICE agents. They are working long hours under tremendously dangerous conditions. We're adding large numbers of immigration judges, high-quality judges. Not only are we adding them in the district court level and the federal level of Court of Appeals, but we're adding immigration judges at a very high level. So while we're very disappointed in the $1.3 trillion, nobody more disappointed than me because the number is so large, it'll start coming down. We had no choice but to fund our military because we have to have by far the strongest military in the world. And this will be by far the strongest military that we've ever had. So when you look at all of these pages, a lot of that is devoted, a lot, to the military. I just want to thank members of Congress for working so hard. While we can be disappointed in some ways, we have to also know that there are a lot of strings pulling everybody in different directions. The Republican senators, the Republican congressmen and women have been steadfast on their fight for the border and steadfast for their fight on the military. We're also spending $6 billion on, as you know, various forms of drug control, helping people that are addicted. It's a terrible problem, but this will be a record. We'll be suing certain drug companies for what they've done with the opioids, and we'll be bringing the suits at a federal level. The level of drugs that are being put out there, and the power of this addiction is hard to believe. People go to the hospital for a period of a week and they come out, they're drug addicts. There has to be a better way. Doctors are way down now in their orders of the opioids, way down. That's a great thing. We're also looking for, in our research funds, we're looking for a medicine that can stop the pain without the addiction, so that people aren't going to become addicted to these incredible drugs. So that's part of what we have. We're going to have $6 billion in having to do with opioids and other problems that this country, and in fact the world, is having with drugs. So we're extremely proud of what we've been able to do when it comes to our military. Our military will be far superior than to any military anywhere in the world. That's very important for us. You see the players out there. You see what we're dealing with. We are very happy with what's happened with opioids. We're very happy with what's happened with certain elements of the border. Not happy with $1.6 billion, but it does start the wall, and we will make that $1.6 billion go very, very far. It's going to go very far. I can tell you this, and I say this to DACA recipients, that the Republicans are with you. They want to get your situation taken care of. The Democrats fought us. They just fought every single inch of the way. They did not want DACA in this bill. And as you know, DACA is also tied to the wall for the major funding, the $25 billion for wall and other things. So I think that'll be coming up very soon. But I do want the Hispanic community to know and DACA recipients to know that Republicans are much more on your side than the Democrats, who are using you for their own purposes. With that being said, I just want to thank everybody for being here. We're very proud of many of the items that we've been able to get. We're very disappointed that in order to fund the military, we had to give up things where we consider, in many cases, them to be bad or them to be a waste of money. But that's the way, unfortunately, right now the system works. But we have a great country. We are going to have the greatest military we've ever had, and lots of good things are happening. The trade situation we'll be talking about next week. We have many trade deals, not only the deal being made on South Korea, which looks like it's very close to being finalized, but many other countries are now negotiating fair trade deals with us. So we'll be rolling them out as you see them. And part of the reason, frankly, that we're able to do that is the fact that we have the tariffs on steel and the tariffs on aluminum, because it showed how unfair some of these trade deals that have been in existence for many years, how unfair they've been. So it'll be great for our country, and frankly, it'll also be great for other countries. And it will be fair, and it will be reciprocal. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. President,
thank you.
why did Vito's credit you had to sign the bill? We'll figure it out in about.
All right, everybody, waiting to see if the president will actually sign the budget bill in front of us, but he said he already has, so likely not. When we return, we'll hear Ron Hoon's weekly interview with Chris Wallace here on News Now.
Any of our thinking.
How concerned are you about the impact of the tariffs on the stock market?
Well, I think the stock market's going to be great. I mean, look, the stock market's way up. When I came into office, the stock market was from a different planet. It's way up. China is going to end up treating us fairly. For many years, they had free rein. They don't have free rein anymore. We're very friendly with China. We have great relationships with China. And look, it's time. It's time. Last year, we lost $500 billion on trade with China. We can't let that happen. Thank you all very much.
Secretary Schultz, lying about the affairs?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to News Now here on Fox 10 Extra. You are taking a live look at beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. The tower cam there shaking a little bit. It's got to be a little windy, but plenty of sunshine out there. It looks like Chase Field has the roof closed. Opening day next week already for Diamondbacks baseball. Can you all believe it? Well, we've had such a busy morning here on News Now, getting everything, showing you everything live that we can. We promised Ron Hoon's weekly interview with Chris Wallace, so let's take a listen to that now. Hopefully you all are having a great day. My name's Pilar Arias. Thanks for being with us.
6:20, Chris Wallace, anchor of Fox News Sunday, joins us. Chris, I'd like to ask you about this resignation of John Dowd from the president's legal team and what it means maybe going forward. Are we going to see, do you think now, a more aggressive, almost more of a fighting approach toward the Mueller investigation, or more cooperation? I mean, the president did say yesterday he would like to sit down with Mueller's investigators.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. In terms of the strategy impact, because Mueller, in fact, had been one of the people that had been opposing the president sitting down with Mueller, or at least limiting the conversation. President, who has great faith in his own ability to sell something, has at least said that he wants to talk to Mueller to persuade him that he did nothing wrong. On the other hand, my guess is it has less to do with a specific strategy and more the sense that the president's legal team had been saying, I think in large part to kind of calm down the president, this will be over by Thanksgiving, it'll be over by the new year, and here we are in March. And there's talk about more and more months of this going on. And of course, Mueller just subpoenaed records from the Trump organization. So it may just be the president is frustrated and wants to put a new team in, not with any specific direction, but just that maybe they'll have better luck dealing with Mueller than John Dowd did.
In a moment, I want to ask you about your guests and about the March for Our Lives, but specifically, Chris, I'd like to ask you, we learned this morning that a gun measure that had been pushed by Texas Senator John Cornyn apparently was included in that spending bill last night. What is this Fix Nix bill, and does it take any pressure off Congress to do more on guns?
Well, no, I don't think it does. And what it is specifically, the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, under the law, states are supposed to provide information, various agencies are supposed to provide information. Remember in Texas, the terrible shooting at that church, it turns out that the man who was in the military had a domestic violence complaints against him. That should have been reported to the instant criminal background check system. It wasn't. And that he was able to get guns that if that had been in the system, he wouldn't have been able to get. So really what Fix Nix does is it says that people should abide the law as it is, and that there's too much sort of things slipping through the crack. It doesn't extend the background check to gun hole loopholes or to internet sales or anything like that. It basically says the law as written should be the law as it's implemented. Okay. It's a very much a halfway measure, and my guess is people that want to see stronger measures, let alone getting into banning guns, but things like expanding the background check or raising the age are not going to be satisfied with that. Now you get to the students. We expect more than 500,000 students here marching in the streets of Washington, and also not just students, but also others who support them. This, of course, started by the massacre in Parkland, Florida. We're going to be talking on Sunday to two of the student leaders, Cameron Kasky and Delaney Tarr. And I have to say, wherever you are on the gun and school safety issue, the idea of students sort of getting off social media and taking to the streets and exercising their First Amendment rights is to me at least, praiseworthy, and we'll talk to them about how they are going to intend to keep the pressure on politicians in Washington. They're clearly not satisfied with what they've done so far.
Yeah, all right, you bet. Chris, thanks. We will definitely...
Well, reports of shots fired at Kiel High School in Wisconsin this morning made police respond to the scene as quickly as possible, but the Kiel police chief giving us an update on what happened.
We're still meeting with and interviewing the staff member who reported it. At this time, we have unconfirmed information. The staff member indicated that she had heard shots outside of the south entrance, the main entrance of Kiel High School.
Our officers were already in a security briefing detail, preparing for a security detail due to the rumored threats of a school shooting at our high school today. We had numerous law enforcement resources on site within less than a minute, including myself. We began a methodical search of the building and evacuated a number of staff members to safety. To date, as of right now, we have found no evidence or no gunmen. The perimeters of the school, the interior areas of the school, and the immediate surrounding area of the school have been and are being searched at this time.
So what's the next step?
All right, so it looks like no evidence found there. Meanwhile, after a police chase in Texas just yesterday, taking a look at protocol officers follow during pursuits.
Some people were late to work because they either got caught up in the traffic jams it caused, or they couldn't stop watching the drama as it all unfolded live.
I think they did a pretty good job, though. They did a pretty good job. They could have maybe stopped them a little sooner, though. I don't think they should have let it go on so far.
His point is not without some merit. At several points in the chase, it looked like police had him cornered or stopped, only to have him slip away. Comments on social media poured in, wondering why they didn't ram the car or set up a roadblock.
Every situation is rapidly evolving, especially one where there's a chase and somebody may have a weapon.
That's Houston Police Officers Union President Joe Gamaldi. He says the department is in the process of rewriting its chase policy. He says because they believed the suspect had a weapon, the last thing they wanted to do was provoke a gunfight along a busy highway. Why not set up a roadblock? The suspect might try to ram it, risking injury to officers. He says they are teaching the officers now the pit maneuver. That's where a patrol car rams the rear corner of the suspect vehicle to get it spin out. They tried it twice during the chase. The first time it failed. The second time it worked according to plan.
There are certain tactics we use that we don't want the public knowing exactly what we're doing, especially when it comes to chases, because those can be some of the most dangerous things that we're involved in.
Social media can be a savage and hypercritical place. However, many of the comments on the Fox Facebook page posted during the live feed praise the police for their restraint, and several drivers told us they'd rather the bad guy get away than anyone else get hurt.
I felt like they were trying to protect the people that were oncoming traffic on the other side. It wasn't that far away, and I felt like they did as much as they could.
Well, an abused puppy found during a traffic stop is now going home with the police officer who rescued it.
She's got a bath and her crystal blue eyes are shining, so she's happy. So I'm happy.
This puppy has a special bond with LMPD officer Jeffrey Emmerich.
I think she's ready to go home and get some toys and treats.
This sweet face is about to join the officer's family.
I have 2 rescues at home. I love rescuing dogs. It's kind of my thing.
But this was a special kind of rescue.
It's heartbreaking.
Emmerich saved the puppy's life during a traffic stop. The suspect, Desmond Jones, pleaded guilty to animal cruelty this week.
He told us there was a dog in the car initially, and we didn't see a dog or hear a dog or anything like that, so we were kind of confused.
Until Emmerich saw a little leg poking out from underneath the passenger seat.
And it was just such a small space that I couldn't even believe a dog was, shoved under there. Pulled the dog out, and it just started immediately shivering. It was covered in, unfortunately, its own urine, and it was just freezing cold.
The pup hitched a ride in the patrol car to Louisville Metro Animal Services.
I was holding her the whole way in my car, just trying to, warm her up a little bit, so hopefully we created a little bond that early.
A couple weeks later, the shelter called to give the puppy's rescuer first dibs to adopt. She's leaving the shelter with a sentimental name.
I'm thinking Audrey. That was my grandma's name, and she's very special to me, so hopefully she'll be just as special.
What started as a sad story ends with a second chance.
Dogs just don't deserve that. They deserve a really wonderful life, and I'm hoping I can give that to it, for sure.
Sarah Sidry, WDRB News.
All right, those of you currently with us on the stream, you are taking a live look at the 2018 International Women of Courage celebration, which honors 10 women who have shown courage and leadership in advocating for women's rights around the world. The First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump, is expected to make comments here any moment. Welcome back to News Now. You are taking a live look at this year's International Women of Courage celebration, which is going to be honoring 10 women who have shown courage and leadership in advocating for women's rights around the world. First Lady Melania Trump expected to deliver remarks there any moment, so we will have that for you live here on News Now. In other news, though, the hockey team from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School finding support playing at the National Championships in Plymouth.
It's not every day a trip to the ice warms a hockey team's heart.
To be here with representatives from around the country watching us play and everyone knowing what we came through to get here, it just makes you feel a special way, makes you play a little bit harder.
The Eagles from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School won the Florida State Championship 11 days after a gunman opened fire at their school, killing 14 students and 3 faculty members. They say playing in the USA Hockey National Championships in Plymouth is a welcome distraction from the events of that fateful day.
It's more of a stress reliever for us. We come on the ice and we don't think about anything else rather than just hockey. It just takes your head away from everything that goes around.
But the hockey community is a close one, and there were signs of support around the rink. Before their game against Regis Jesuit of Colorado, there was a moment of silence for the victims of the deadly school shooting. While afterwards, the Raiders gave the Eagles a signed banner and team jersey in a remarkable display of sportsmanship.
I thought that was amazing. A huge thank you to the Regis Jesuit boys. Just very nice of them. I don't know, I thought that was something very special. I'll always remember that.
The Eagles say hockey is helping them heal, and hopefully their resiliency, both on the ice and off, will not only raise spirits in their community, but help them soar.
We just gotta remember what we're playing for and what this means to us and the community and friends back home. We just gotta remember that it's bigger than just hockey right now. We just gotta pull together, play 100%, and get some wins.
All right, well, here on News Now, we have access to live feeds across the country. So while we wait for Melania Trump to come out and make her remarks there, I'm going to show you, this is Maury's Pier in Wildwood, New Jersey. It is the boardwalk. Take a look at that. Not seeing the Ferris wheel spinning or the roller coaster going, but certainly a very cool picture there. Makes me want to go to an amusement park, and it's kind of giving those beach vibes, wouldn't you say? Keeping a very close eye on that event there where Melania Trump is supposed to speak any moment now, and we will bring that to you live when we can. Let's take a look at stocks in the meantime. There you go here, the big board that we like to call it. A little bit up and down today, got some green and some red in there, so we'll continue to monitor that as well. Well, another live event happening now at the museum. Student journalists of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School are attending an event with Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan, speaking with the student reporters of the school's newspapers, the Eagle Eye, there at the museum. It looks like things are getting underway there. Let's take a listen in really quickly.
Nikita Nukala, Rebecca Schneid, and Kevin Trejos recount their experiences witnessing and reporting on the tragedy. We are also privileged to be joined today by Margaret Brennan, CBS News' senior foreign affairs correspondent and the new moderator of Face the Nation, who will lead our conversation today. Tomorrow, these student journalists and 7 other reporters for the Eagle Eye will be on the ground reporting from the March for Our Lives rally in Washington, an anti-gun violence protest organized by their fellow students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. An estimated 500,000 people are expected to take part in the rally, exercising their First Amendment freedoms. As the demonstrators walk by the museum, they will see the 45 words of the First Amendment etched in marble that grace the front of the building, reminding all who see it that every day we as Americans enjoy the freedoms of religion, speech, press, petition, and assembly. Since we opened this Pennsylvania Avenue location almost 10 years ago, more than 7 million visitors have experienced the story of news, the role of a free press in major events in history, and how the 5 freedoms of the First Amendment apply to their lives. The mission of the museum is to increase the public understanding of the importance of a free press and the First Amendment. Each and every day, through our exhibits and programming, the museum informs our visitors about the valuable role that journalists serve in our democracy. We convene programs like this one today so that people of all beliefs can come together to discuss pressing issues related to our First Amendment freedoms. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Margaret Brennan and the student journalists of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School.
Speaking of welcoming, Melania Trump is at that event now. Hello, Mrs. Trump, welcome.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the State Department. I'm honored to welcome you to the 12th Annual Secretary of State's International Women of Courage Awards, which have recognized more than 120 remarkable women from dozens of countries since the award's inception. In addition to the privilege of being joined by the First Lady, I would also like to extend a special welcome to the members of the diplomatic corps in the audience, including Ambassador Callista Gingrich. Where is she? She's here somewhere. Thank you. There she is. Ambassador Gingrich, welcome. She joins us from the Vatican today and has been in Washington this week. It's wonderful to have you back here with us. We know that women's voices are critical to global security, prosperity, and peace, which is why the Department of State annually presents the International Women of Courage Awards. Each awardee's story is an inspiring reminder of how individuals can make a difference. Taken together, they provide a powerful message of courage and leadership. And you can read some of their profiles in your pamphlets that you have with you. This year, we have recognized 10 extraordinary women who've demonstrated not only courage and leadership, but a deep resolve to fight day in and day out for what they believe. The formidable leaders include a former slave and anti-slavery activist, a human rights lawyer documenting abuse under the junta rule, a nun sheltering internally displaced people from violence, a writer, director, and producer who wrote scripts under the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, and a courageous advocate for the families of forcibly disappeared persons. We are so happy to have them here today. The United States is proud to honor these leaders as part of our commitment to advancing the status of women and girls around the world. I want to take a moment to thank my colleagues in the Secretary's Office of Global Women's Issues for the work that they do to ensure that women's equality and empowerment are integrated into our U.S. foreign policy. Our GWE folks, thank you so much for bringing them all together. I'd also like to recognize the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, whose people-to-people programs are a critical element of our diplomacy, including the International Visitor Leadership Program these women are about to embark on for the next 2 weeks, I believe, as they share their stories with audiences around the United States. This commitment to women's empowerment is the reason that President Trump signed the Women, Peace, and Security Act into law last October. The new law affirms the United States' commitment to expanding women's leadership on the issues of international peace and security, especially efforts to prevent conflict and atrocities, promote peace and counterterrorism, and also violent extremism. We know that when women are empowered, communities are safer and countries are more stable. We see that around the world every day. Another way to ensure that women are empowered is by expanding economic access and opportunity. Reports show that if the world closed the gender gap in workforce participation, global GDP would increase by $28 trillion by the year 2025. That is precisely why President Trump galvanized the creation of the Women's Entrepreneurship Finance Initiative through a U.S. contribution of $50 million at the G20 Leaders Summit last summer. Along with contributions from international partners, the initiative has leveraged more than $340 million in support to help advance women's entrepreneurship around the globe. From day one, the Trump administration has been committed to empowering women. Women's empowerment is not only a basic fulfillment of human rights, but a strategic investment in our collective future. Women and girls must have the tools they need to succeed and the pathways that they seek opened. That includes a safe environment that promotes their health and also their education. Whether at home or abroad, expanding opportunities for women and girls is a priority of this president for this administration. And today I'm honored to introduce someone who plays a central role in this critical initiative. As a philanthropist and a humanitarian, the First Lady has been a driving force behind the administration's efforts to promote the empowerment of women and children in our society. Mrs. Trump has been an honorary chairwoman for the Boys Club of New York for 5 consecutive years, and in 2005 was awarded the title of Goodwill Ambassador for the American Red Cross. She helped launch the National Child Abuse Prevention Month in April of 2008 and has been a champion for the American Heart Association. Her deep concern for issues affecting children continues. As First Lady, she's focused on the challenges of what children are exposed to online through technology. And as a mom whose children are always trying to sneak her electronic devices, I thank you for your work on that. A lot of us can relate to that. Mrs. Trump works tirelessly to raise awareness of the damaging effects of opioids and the harmful effects that the drugs can have on pregnant women, particularly on newborns who develop neonatal abstinence syndrome, or NAS. Mrs. Trump, the State Department has watched with a great deal of pride as you visited hospitals and women's groups around the country to draw attention to this. Thank you for that. Mrs. Trump is a powerful voice promoting women's equality and improving the lives of women and girls around the world. Now, please join me in welcoming the First Lady of the United States, Mrs. Melania Trump.
Thank you. Thank you, Undersecretary Nowert, our distinguished honorees and guests. Thank you for the honor of allowing me to join you again as we recognize the recipients of the International Women of Courage Award. This award is reserved for those women around the world who have shown incredible courage and leadership in advocating for peace, justice, human rights, equality, and women's empowerment. They do so at the great personal risk to themselves and their families. Each of these women now join the distinguished list of past honorees who have made the world a better place. As we recognize these incredible women, let us think for a moment about what courage truly is. Courage is the quality most needed in this world, yet it is often the hardest to find. Courage sets apart those who believe in higher calling and those who act on it. It takes courage not only to see wrong, but strive to right it. Courage is what sets apart the heroes from the rest. It is equal parts bravery and nobility. The women of courage we honor here today are heroes. They're heroes in the countries they call home. They're heroes for the entire world. In recognizing them, we stand for what is right. In telling their stories, we can teach young women and girls all over the world what it means to have courage and to be a hero. Their examples define courage. I see courage in a woman who survived a brutal attack under lasting injuries and who now speaks against violence and teaches young girls the power of self-worth and self-respect. I see courage in a woman who became the first in her country to serve in the military and helps lead the fight against terrorists who seeks only to destroy life. And I see courage in a woman who risks her own life to see that the women and girls of Iraq are no longer subject to the horrors of human trafficking, killings, or rape. These are some of the stories of courage we will hear today. Each of them defines a hero who walks among us. As many of you know, I'm focused on helping children in everywhere that I can. And I believe that they learn by what they see around them. The women we are honoring today define what it means to be a role model. I cannot thank all of you enough for the path you are helping to pave for our next generation. As we take this moment to honor such deserving women, let me also thank the men and women of the State Department who work every day in the pursuit of a world that is more free and more prosperous, not only for the American people, but for all of mankind. I thank you, our incredible American diplomats, for showing courage on behalf of our country every day. I'm here because I believe in you and the honorees with whom I'm privileged to share the stage with, and who do so much on behalf of humanity. God bless you, your families. God bless the United States of America.
More news now when we return.
To go back to doing normal stuff.
Thank you, Mrs. Trump. Thanks to all of you. As Mrs. Trump just discussed, courage takes many, many forms. This year, we are honored to recognize 10 extraordinary women who've dedicated and demonstrated not only courage and leadership, but a deep resolve to fight for what they believe in and day out. I'd like to introduce you to these women. First, we have Roya Sadat. She's from Afghanistan. She is a writer, a producer, a film director. Ms. Sadat, she's over here. She is being honored for refusing to be silenced in her home country. She uses the arts to raise awareness of the brutal challenges facing women and girls. And despite threats to herself, her cast, and her crew, she served as a pioneer for Afghanistan's cultural reawakening. In fact, she wrote her film, 3 Dots, while keeping it a secret from the Taliban. And many of you will recall that entertainment was not allowed. Music, films, all of that was not allowed under the Taliban. Congratulations to you. Thank you for your bravery. And next from Honduras, we have Dr. Julissa Villanueva. She is the Director of Forensic Medicine at the Honduras Public Ministry. Dr. Villanueva is being honored for tackling pervasive violence against women.
This is an important post at the White House. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster will soon be out, replaced by former UN Ambassador John Bolton. This is a guy who does not mince words, and this may represent a real shift in foreign policy for the administration. A former UN Ambassador John Bolton has a distinctive image and a combative diplomatic approach. But this tweet from President Trump late yesterday announcing Bolton's selection as National Security Advisor left him searching for words.
I didn't really expect an announcement this afternoon, but it's obviously a great honor. It's always an honor to serve our country.
Bolton will replace H.R. McMaster, a 3-star Army general with vast experience, but someone who didn't always see eye to eye with the president.
This has shocked people inside the building. Again, it's the timing of it. There was an assumption that at some point he was going to remove H.R. McMaster. They never formed a personal chemistry. John Bolton is as interventionist and hawkish as they come.
Bolton has been a critic of the Iran nuclear deal, skeptical of overtures by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, but he has also been a strong voice against Russia. Most Democrats none too pleased with the pick. Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey saying President Trump is assembling a war cabinet full of yes men who will fan his worst impulses. Bolton will round out a new foreign policy team that will include CIA Director Mike Pompeo as Secretary of State, assuming he's confirmed.
The president gets to make the final decision within the executive branch. But I think he's surrounded himself with strong personalities. He wants to hear their views, and I think we'll both be happy to provide them.
Now, unlike Pompeo as Secretary of State, this job, National Security Advisor, does not require Senate confirmation. In Washington, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
Students have arrived in D.C. and are meeting with lawmakers ahead of tomorrow's March for Our Lives.
Students from across the country have started arriving in Washington for a weekend of events aimed at raising pressure on lawmakers to act on gun control. The centerpiece is Saturday's March for Our Lives, but on Friday, the students are on Capitol Hill meeting with lawmakers from both parties demanding real change following the deadly shooting in Parkland.
What we need to realize, though, is so long as we have this unified front and we come together stronger as Americans and we work together to solve this and we hold our politicians accountable, we must continue to do so.
Most Democrats say they support the students' gun control proposals, including raising the firearm purchasing age to 21 and banning certain types of rifles. And they say they'll keep pushing for what they call common sense gun laws, making it a central issue in the 2018 midterms.
We need to get the assault rifles and the large capacity magazines off the streets.
You're here to be their advocates, to be their voices, and eventually to be their votes. That's what this march is about.
But lawmakers remain deeply divided on the issue, with most Republicans backing a bill that would make it easier to arm faculty and staff, saying there's little consensus on legislation containing stricter gun control measures.
We don't have the votes for that. So what we're looking at is where can we have common ground on school safety.
The march on Saturday is scheduled to start at noon on the National Mall. Similar rallies are also expected to take place across the country. On Capitol Hill, Peter Ducey, Fox News.
Rains brought flooding and mudslides to Santa Barbara County yet again.
The rock and mudslide at 2700 Tepesquay Road came during an intense and sustained downpour from a storm cell that settled over the area. The deluge also sent a torrent of muddy water and debris down Tepesquay Creek, which crusted its banks in the Upper Canyon area. Santa Barbara County road crews worked through the driving rain to clean up the slide that forced the closure of Tepesquay Road between Santa Maria Mesa Road and Highway 166. And when it rains, it pours for people who live and work in Oceano. Storm runoff once again collected at the intersection of Highway 1 and 13th Street, which was completely underwater for most of the morning. Hampered for years by poor drainage in the area, it's a recurring scene whenever there's steady rainfall, which isn't great for business at Oceano Market and Gas.
So I've lived here since the early 80s, and it's flooded every year. And it just gets worse and worse every year. Last year, the water came all the way up. When people come through here, it's unsafe. They go fast, they get stuck, have to get pulled out.
Well, authorities in Texas learning more about the thought process of the Austin package bomber.
It is the outcry of a very challenged young man.
And now investigators in Austin have the challenge of analyzing the confession of a killer as they pore over Mark Condit's final words and hope to determine why the unemployed college dropout became a deadly serial bomber.
He does not at all mention anything about terrorism, nor does he mention anything about hate.
But in that 25-minute confession recorded on his phone, the 23-year-old Condit described in detail the explosives he made at his home.
The suspect describes the 6 bombs that he constructed with a level of specificity that he identified the differences among those 6 bombs. We have told you all along that they all had similarities, which they did as far as specific components, but there were also differences between them.
While Condit apparently didn't explain how or why he chose his targets, House Homeland Security Chairman Michael McCall says the man described as quiet and socially awkward had a hit list.
He had a target list of future targets, residences, addresses that we found.
As for Condit's family members and what they knew, his aunt says they had no idea of his darkness.
He was a great kid. He was smart, he was loving, he was kind. I have no idea who this person is.
Federal agents have concluded their investigation at the suspect's house right back here, and the road has been reopened to residents finally. They have collected quite a bit of evidence, which investigators say includes a cache of bomb-making materials and computers and hard drives that could prove beneficial in the investigation. Now the house just boarded up. It's the latest from Pflugerville, Texas. Casey Stiegel, Fox News.
No matter how badly it snows, one man in New Jersey never has to lift a hand to clean up his driveway. That's all thanks to a unique geothermal system.
It's going to start coming down in the next 2 hours or so, you know, a couple inches an hour.
Right.
You're not worried about anything?
No, not at all.
Why not?
Because the driveway and the walkway and the stoop, they all have tubings which are running hot water, and that hot water will constantly melt the snow which accumulates.
No matter how hard it snows, Raj and Barty Parikh don't need a shovel or snowblower. Tell me about what is actually happening beneath our feet.
Well, you're pretty much standing on a concrete which is approximately 75 degrees Fahrenheit warm, and there are tubes underneath which are carrying hot water.
It means no ice or snow will accumulate and the driveway dries out before some of his neighbors even start to shovel. It's like a stream,
right,
all the way down, just from up there, just melting it all the way.
Melting the snow all the way, and some of the water is caught in the trench drain, but most of the water is flowing straight down.
We first showed you the one-of-a-kind geothermal heating system back in 2016 when he melted away a January blizzard. Last year, he perfected the system to click on just as the first flakes start to fall.
There is always room for improvements.
It's one feature of the home in Paramus, New Jersey that has no furnace or AC. Instead, solar panels warm rainwater to more than 100 degrees. It's stored in giant tanks below the ground until it's needed.
It's distributed in 8 different loops which are placed below the concrete of this driveway.
And then it comes back in and it goes back up through?
It goes back up through, and it goes through a shell and tube heat exchanger, and it comes back heated up.
Circulates.
And it constantly circulates.
Now Raj, who's a research engineer, is looking to take things a step further and incorporate battery power from his hybrid and electric vehicles as a backup energy source.
And the Prius will be able to power the batteries. The sun will be charging the batteries every day, and if the batteries run out of it, then we will run the Prius car and charge the batteries to continue running the pumps.
This is almost the masterpiece.
Yes.
But has he been tinkering with things at some point everywhere along the line?
He just likes to play with it, yes. All the time.
He's getting pretty good at it.
Yes.
Yeah. One day I will be good at it.
You know, not only is that cool, but I had always heard that Northern Arizona University, NAU, up in Flagstaff, that they had something similar underneath their walkways. Now, I did go to school there for a couple winters, but I was never able to find out whether or not that's true. Let's get you all caught up on your morning business outlook.
The Dow dropped 724 points at the close yesterday, its 5th biggest drop in history, closing at 23,957. The Nasdaq falling 178 points and the S&P 500 losing 68 points at the close. Wall Street is pulling back as fear of a trade war grows after President Trump signed $50 billion in tariffs against China, and China hit back, promising $3 billion in tariffs against U.S. imports. Investors also bracing for steel and aluminum tariffs going into effect today. And Lyft is giving students free rides to the March for Our Lives gun control rally happening in 50 cities across the U.S. The ride-sharing company pledging to donate $1.5 million worth of free rides towards the cause. And Toys R Us may have a lifeline. One billionaire investor and toy maker is trying to save the company. Isaac Larian of MGA Entertainment has partnered with other investors and has already raised $200 million toward the effort. They're setting up a GoFundMe page to raise the remaining $800 million. Larian wants to buy the company for $1 billion, and he's using the hashtag #SaveToysRUs to spread word of the campaign. That's business. For more, log on to foxbusiness.com. In Los Angeles, I'm Hillary Vaughn.
Did he get shot? Did he get killed? Or is he like in critical care? Is he in ICU? Is he out? Is he like, did he just get released? Like, it's just like all these thoughts. And like, you watch the news to try and get some like verification. But like, I just watch the news to like make it feel real.
You watch the local news or national?
I mean, I watched every news.
Everywhere,
every time there was a commercial, I would flip it to a different news station. I had it on. And like I just constantly like watched it for like the first like 24 to 48 hours.
Like especially now with all of our classmates being on almost every news station, at least one of them every night, it's really hard to avoid seeing them. So I try to watch as much as possible without like, a lot of the interviews end up being the same. Like they're saying the same thing, and you only have to see that one time. But we want to see something. We want to see something new, and that's why we're here, because we can provide that news perspective on things. Because each news outlet has to replay the same questions to their specific audience. But our audience is Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, so we're playing to them, and we don't have to play the same interviews of Emma, David, Cameron. Like we don't have to do the same thing again. We can do something else, like maybe someone who hasn't been as covered by everyone else.
Right, and I think as like a student publication, we have like that liberty and that like resource to be able to reach out to our students who actually survived this shooting, and so we're able to accurately, we have the resources to accurately portray like what happened and be able to tell the stories of what happened.
And I think also, like you said, watching the news that night, I feel like I couldn't do anything else, and doing anything normal seemed wrong, and just doing anything felt wrong. So all I did was just sit there and watch the news for hours and hours until my parents pulled me away and made me go to bed. But like.
Welcome back to News Now here on Fox 10 Extra. We are going to continue listening in to the student journalist of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School at an event at the museum in Washington, D.C. ahead of tomorrow's March for Our Lives.
My friends, seeing what they know, what's the latest that they know about, who's injured, who's passed, and everything. So it was tough, but like that, I know there were some people even who like just completely avoided the news. But for me, I would like I'm on like most of them, I guess. I was just glued to the TV and to my phone.
You try to avoid, but then you're just like curious. Like you just want to like let it sink in, and like I just want to watch it to like see like my school on the TV, like our school on the TV.
Christy, you said you have the resources to cover it accurately. Have you been noticing inaccurate coverage as a consumer?
For sure. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, a lot of not all, but like some media outlets have been, I don't know if they fact check what they write, but sometimes they'll get like the name wrong, who they were as a person, just totally off, and that just angers me sometimes because it's just as simple as like spell check or like just like asking someone who knew them, just as simple as that. It could have been fixed, but stuff like that, I think since we're student journalists, we can easily address those errors and be able to fix how they're portrayed.
Does that anger you when you see those errors?
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, one of our other editors took the article, marked it up, and sent it back to the reporter.
There's an article about my advisor, and it's like 5 facts about Melissa Walkowski, and they're all wrong. There's not one that's accurate, and there's like articles like that everywhere, and it's just the most bewildering thing to see these articles about like people that we know and that we spend our days with every single day at school, and you're like, that is not accurate. Like that is like, and like I know, like we know these people. It's just the most bewildering and weird thing, just as a person, not even just as a journalist, but also as a journalist it is.
I'm wondering, I remember covering Sandy Hook in the wake of that shooting, and I grew up in a nearby town, and I remember that I felt such a strange feeling talking to people who I knew, where I was related to, and asking them personal questions in a way that changed the dynamic from what I'm used to with stories and being a correspondent, to try to have that wall up. That wall starts breaking down when you start having personal connections. And I noticed over time that when I was also talking to people in the area, that they felt, similar to what you're saying, that it was therapeutic to see the news coverage and to have people asking and to feel the immediacy of it. But then over time, they got angry about it. They felt that they were over-scrutinized, a number of the people that I spoke with at the time. Where are you in that process, I'm wondering? Because you have such a huge, bright spotlight on you right now. In some ways, it's being asked for with this march, but what is it doing to you as journalists or even just as survivors? How are you processing that?
I think that as it's different for me, I have to sometimes separate myself as a survivor and as a journalist. And I, in the beginning, there were certainly journalists and people that covered it in a way that I felt was inappropriate, and that made me a bit disillusioned to, my dreams as a journalist and whether or not the profession was what I had hoped it to be. But
inappropriate how?
The questions that they asked, the cameras in your face, and I obviously understand that needs to happen, that people need to see. But when you're in a place of such horror and such pain, it's very difficult for you to be able to mentally wrap your mind around a camera in your face while you're hugging your friend and crying, at a vigil. So I think that, but with this movement, with the march, I've been able to see how journalism has elevated our voices to beyond what we ever thought that it could be. So I think that it goes. We fluctuate. Sometimes I'm angry. Sometimes I'm happy about it. And there's no handbook on how to deal with this. Mm-hmm. There's no guideline on how to properly deal with the kind of spotlight that we have on us. So I learn new things every day about it.
You want the spotlight to stay on your story?
Until there's change.
I think to some extent, yes. Until there's change, we want the spotlight to be on the activism, though. There doesn't need to be media vans in front of Douglas every single day, because there's 3,000 kids that don't want to be on TV all the time, and they just want to go to school and have an education and have a normal high school life. And as seniors and as a junior, we had 2 or 3 years to have that Douglas experience, and to not be bombarded by questions about every time you go to a party and you say, I'm from Douglas, that's where I go to school, and the other kids or even the parents sometimes ask oh, were you there that day? Did you know anyone that got killed? That's just...
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. Yeah. Sometimes I schedule an interview and then the next day I'm I can't do it, and I cancel. It's just, there are just good days and bad days, and it's hard to know what the limit is going to be for that day, yeah.
I'm not sure where we are in timing, but I do want to go to questions from the audience. So if you would, when you ask your question, there's the microphone on both sides, obviously, but say who you are, if you're with a publication or if you're...
When we return, everybody, we will listen to a Glendale Police Department news conference from this morning saying they need some more school resource officers, or SROs. We'll be right back.
Newspaper, Estado de São Paulo. I'd like to know if you could put in perspective how you see the march in a historical perspective, and you think you can transform the question of gun violence in the civil rights of this era. Thank you.
Well, I mean, for us, at least so far, we haven't realized, I haven't realized that this march might end up becoming a historic march that's remembered in the history books. For me, at least right now, it's just oh, my friends decided to start a march and there's going to be tons of people there. That's where I'm at. We'll see after tomorrow.
That's totally fair. Here.
Hi, my name's Kat. I'm an online editor from my school's newspaper, the George Mason University. And I was just wondering if you guys could speak a little bit to the fact that social media is such a great platform for you guys, and how are you utilizing that better than the adults who clearly don't get it?
We definitely, I mean, we're all young. We grew up with social media, so it's definitely our edge on Twitter, maybe Facebook, but Facebook is kind of getting a little. you know, we're like able, I think social media is definitely an essential part in this movement just because social media kind of, I mean, people criticize us as the generation who's always on social media and who never like really take into account that we have to like be outside and like interact with others besides on our phones. But we've also been able to use this to just unify people from around the world from like, I mean, we've gotten like so much support from just around the country.
Australia, from Europe, from around the country.
So first and foremost, thank you everybody for coming this morning to listen to this important message. I want to thank Mayor, members of the council, our superintendents, and of course our officers that are here. On February 14th, something happened in our nation in Parkland, Florida, that had a very deep impact on the nation as a whole, on the state of Arizona, and of course on the city of Glendale. Nationally, since February 14th, we've had 1,200 incidents and threats to schools. In Arizona, we're reporting over a dozen incidents and threats to schools, high school campuses. I can tell you here in Glendale, I believe that number is closer to a dozen just for our city alone on our high school campuses. We have 9 high school campuses, over 4 districts within the city of Glendale, and we're seeing an unprecedented number of threats and incidents that have begun to occur, and they all seem to be linked to what happened in Parkland, Florida. This is having a very real impact on all of us in our nation, in the state of Arizona, of course, in the city of Glendale. Ladies and gentlemen, we're at a crossroads here today. Community safety is of the utmost concern for the city of Glendale, for the Glendale Police Department, for me as a chief of police, and also as a father. You see, I've got kids that live in Glendale, are being raised in Glendale, and go to school in Glendale, so they're on these campuses that we're talking about where these incidents are occurring in such a greater number than we've ever seen before. So safety on our campuses is very important to me as a person, as a father, and of course as a chief of police. We have to have a plan. We have to do something about what's going on. So we can either sit back and wait and see what everybody else is going to do and then react along with everybody else, or we can be proactive as a city and do something now. And that's our commitment. We want to do something right now to address this issue. So we have currently 4 school resource officers on different campuses within our city. We also have a school liaison program. The school liaison program functions very similar to a school resource officer program in that I've got officers whose sole responsibility and task in their job duties is to develop relationships with the over 60 campuses that we have, education campuses that we have within our city. That's elementary, middle school, and of course high schools. Those high schools that don't currently have a school resource officer. And so they're very busy. 60 campuses is a lot of campuses to manage. And what we're finding is the school liaison officers are being pulled since Parkland, Florida, more to the high school campuses, and we need to make sure that our elementary education campuses and our middle schools are also have the resources needed so that they can function in a safe manner. So we have to have a new plan. A few weeks ago, our city manager, Kevin Phelps, came to me after seeing a news story on a Friday morning and said, "Chief, I have great concern. What are we going to do? What do you think we should do? What kind of plan can we put together and implement immediately?" It didn't take me long to think about it because I know the value of a school resource officer program and what they bring to our education facilities. And so I said, "Mr. City Manager, I think what we need to do is place an SRO on every high school campus. I think that's the right thing to do." So we began, Mr. Phelps and I began working with our superintendents who are here today, and I certainly appreciate their support, and having discussions about what that might look like and how quickly we could do that. I am committed in this new plan to have an SRO on every high school campus in the city of Glendale this coming Monday. That's quick turnaround for local city government. To redeploy resources that quickly takes the support of mayor and council, city management, officers within the police department. It's everyone getting involved and saying this is important, this is something that we need to do, so we're going to do it. The SROs on the campuses are not just there for safety and security. They will be a resource for safety and security, as well as a resource in building relationships with the teachers, faculty, and students that exist on those campuses and that go to school on those campuses. That's important. That's part of our community policing philosophy that I'm sure you've all heard me talk about for a couple of years now. Community policing is the core of what we do here in the Glendale Police Department, and the SRO program fits very nicely within that model. Officers on campuses developing relationship with our students, with their parents, with teachers and faculty that work on those campuses, and so we're excited about this opportunity. People deserve to feel safe. They deserve to feel safe where they go to school, where they go to work, and every aspect of their life. And it is the mission of the Glendale Police Department to protect the lives and property of the people we serve. We do that by helping to create a feeling of safety in our community. This program will help instill a greater sense of safety on our campuses, and that's exciting for us as a police department, as a city. Everyone that's been involved in these discussions is excited about what this means. But today is only the beginning. We're committed to being the home of some of the safest education facilities and most successful schools. And with that, I want to thank you and turn it back over to Tiffany.
Thank you, Chief. Our next speaker will be City of Glendale Mayor Jerry Wires.
This is actually a great day. It really is. Anyone who knows me knows that I love our public safety officers, and I love spending time in our schools with our Glendale students. I want to commend our police chief right off the bat for his leadership and thank all the public safety and all of the first responders in our city. They've demonstrated time and time again that they are willing to lay their lives down to protect our citizens. And these are exactly the individuals that we want and we need in our schools, working and serving our students. I do want to ensure the citizens of Glendale that the council, standing to my right, our city manager, and public safety leaders have made public safety our top priority, and you have just witnessed that today. At a time when a lot of people are doing a lot of talking about how to protect our schools, it's incredibly important to point out that our city and our police department are not talking, we're taking action. I want all the parents and students, teachers and staff to understand and to know that we are committed to keeping our schools and all of our citizens safe. This is something that we all looked at. We've talked an awful lot about it at the council. We financially really couldn't afford to do this, but we can't afford not to do this. We found a way through the management, through our council, to figure out how to pay for this, and I think that that's something I think is shocking to a lot of people. We figured out a way to do it, and I hope that cities across the nation will follow suit and do the same. Thank you for that, and I'll let you do that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Our last speaker is going to be City Manager Kevin Phelps.
Like millions of other Americans, I witnessed as yet another tragedy unfolded in one of our schools across this nation. As with past shootings, my emotions ran the gamut. From the initial kind of shock, the horrific shock of this, to the outrage, and eventually then to the great sorrow for the 17 victims, their friends, and families. Recently, I was watching with my wife a 60-minute segment about 5 students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School who have decided to take action into their own hands to help prevent future tragedies. Through their efforts, tomorrow, tens of thousands of students will converge on Washington, D.C. for the Never Again rally. Through these students' efforts, an additional 800 other events around the world will be taking place, sending a very powerful message that it's time to quit talking and a time to start doing. As I reflected on the resolve of these students and how much of a difference they have made in such a short time, I became terribly convicted. You see, these students have already accomplished so much in such a short period of time, yet they have virtually no authority, no resources, no staff, no money, or even a platform at which to work from. Then it hit me how sad it is for those of us who do have authority, who do have resources, who do have a platform, are being so easily outflanked by these students. You see, as Glendale City Manager, I have access to resources, have staff, have a platform. So how can I sleep well at night with such inaction by our city in protecting our children and our campuses? The responsibility should not and cannot fall on the shoulders of our students and teachers. What they are asking is really pretty basic. Let us be kids again, and let us learn in a safe environment. With this conviction, I immediately called Chief St. John and asked him to quickly come up with a plan to better protect our 9 high school campuses. Within days, we had a plan that I was able to share with our mayor and council. Their support and encouragement has led to today's announcement. Our team still have work to do to identify the significant financial resources that will be needed to fund this effort. However, finding resources for this program should not be placed solely on the backs of our police department. Rather, our entire organization will be asked to do their part to ensure that this program has the resources to be successful. In closing, I have 3 quick messages. First, to the nearly 1,800 employees of the City of Glendale, I want to thank you in advance for doing your part to help us find a solution to make this initiative a priority. As public servants, I know each of you will agree that protecting our children should be and is going to be one of our highest priorities. Second, to the students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, a sincere thank you. You have demonstrated through your actions, what leadership is. Your actions have been a catalyst, hopefully, to all of us who have been entrusted with so much to rise up without excuses and commit to making our schools and campuses safe and secure. And finally, to our Glendale students, teachers, school administrators, and the men and women who proudly wear the Glendale Police Department uniform. I want you to know you have our commitment as a city to make school safety a top priority for our community. Thank you.
Well, were any of you members of a run club in elementary school? I was not. It wasn't my most favorite thing to do, but Fox 10 Phoenix's very own Corey McCloskey this morning was at Zaharis Elementary School with some young ones who are runners, and it turns out they're having a fundraiser. Let's take a listen to his report.
They run like the wind. We've already seen that, and they have a terrific event coming up tonight at the Leadership Academy in Gilbert. We'll get the details and the address of all that with Sean Astin, famous Hollywood actor and everyone's beloved favorite. Now, look at their faces. These are the people who are motivated, who are willing in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade to get out and run. But they're not just runners. They've also got other specialized skills. For instance, we've lined up some of our favorites over here. What's your first name?
Samuel.
All right, Samuel. What's your special skill? Show it to us. All right. Every time a special skill is displayed, please, some polite applause. Very good. And what will you be doing?
I will be blowing up my eye.
Blowing up your eye or your eyelid?
Eyelid.
Okay, let's get a good look at that. So you're going to force air into your eyelid? Oh, my. Your mom must be very proud of that. How about you?
My name's Daniel, and I'll be doing the belly roll.
Okay. Very, very nice. And you?
My name's Steele, and I'll be doing this.
Oh, gosh. Does it hurt?
No.
Can I do it? Here, put your thumb back out. I'm going to bend it down, okay? Oh, that's awesome. Thank you very much. How about you?
I'm Luke.
What will you be doing? Oh, a little weird tongue action? Yeah, show it to the camera up there. Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah, don't make him beg for the applause. Let's make sure that we're applauding. And you?
My name is Race, and I will be impersonating Elmo.
Okay, let's hear it, Race.
So, here from years. I must have carried.
Very good. That's got to be killer at Thanksgiving. And you?
I'm Addison, and I can put both my thumbs back to my.
Oh, let's see both of them. Oh my, that's way back. Very, very good. And finally, we got a big finish here. What's your name, buddy?
Gavin.
All right, Gavin, take it away. What are you
I
gonna?
can do handstand and walk on it.
Oh, Gavin's a hand walker. Fantastic. Good job, everyone. Now, Mindy, one more time. In addition to the running, you'll be having a great fundraiser tonight.
Yes.
Where and when? Got about 15 seconds.
So at American Leadership Academy tonight, the show starts at 7, but we'll be out there with food trucks and Run Third information starting at 5.
Come see Sean Astin perform with the Jesters Improv Group. All you guys, run! Run! Keep running! We'll see you in Albuquerque!
Thanks for that, Core.
This is a Fox 10 News Alert.
All right, everybody, taking you out live now to what we're being told is an officer-involved shooting here in Phoenix. The latest we are getting, this is in the 7500 block of West Glen Rosa. So that's actually Glen Rosa and 75th Avenue. Looks like they're on the west side. Live pictures being provided by our very own Rick Davis. But again, we are being told that there's no injuries to officers and the suspect is in custody. So we will continue to keep an eye on that situation. Well, when it comes to college, do we all look for the best value or do we go for our major? Turns out ASU ranks second in the state as the best value college for your money. Our very own Carmen Blackwell looked into it. Let's take a listen.
Well, some of us work really hard for our money, but others are working hard for that degree. But is that education worth all of that debt? We're going to take a look at a few images here. They're from Embry-Riddle, which was actually ranked #1 in the state of Arizona. That's a degree from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, reportedly produces the greatest return on the money paid towards tuition. At Caltech and Stanford were the closest competitors on the list of schools with the best value. According to the personal finance website Smart Asset, MIT grads average a starting salary that hits just above $81,000. It's the third consecutive year the Cambridge school tops the list, beating its nearby neighbor Harvard University by 5 spots. The list was compiled by using data about tuition, living costs, scholarship, and grant offerings, all the stuff that you need to know, and retention rate and graduate starting salaries. We got a chance to kind of browse around the campus and talk to a few students to see if they feel they're getting their money's worth for their education and how they're choosing to pay for it.
I do believe so. They have a lot of new programs, especially for the science department, because I have a requirement for upper division science courses for my graduate programs, and they have added more because of that. They have noticed that there's a demand for that, so I do appreciate them taking that initiative and stepping up for that.
Are you taking scholarships, or are you doing grants, or taking out loans?
Yeah, I'm doing a combination of sort of all of them to get the money. I mean, I need a degree to get what I want to do. I probably could go through what I wanted to do without it if I wanted to do something else, but I don't. So I feel like this is the only way that I can get what I want.
All right, everyone. Well, that's going to do it for us here on News Now for the day, for the week, this Friday edition. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. Those of you on the stream will be with you for just a few minutes here before we take a break, and then we'll rejoin you later this afternoon. Meanwhile, feel free to let us know where you're watching from or what your favorite story was there during the broadcast. All right, everyone, we're going to take a stream break. Again, we'll see you later on this afternoon. Thanks so much for being with Fox News Now, a part of fox10phoenix.com.